welcome to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'd like to share my recent conversation with Raj Venkatesan. Raj is a member of the marketing faculty here at the Darden School of Business, and he's also one of the co-academic directors of the MS in Business Analytics program here at the University of Virginia. I recently connected with Raj to talk more about his background, what led him to the MSBA program, as well as his thoughts on preparing students for the artificial intelligence age. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. Remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Raj Venkatesan. Well, welcome, everyone. My name is Brett Twitty. I'm a member of the MSBA Admissions Committee. Thank you so much for joining for tonight's conversation with Raj Venkatesan. Raj is one of the academic directors for the MSBA program. He's also a Darden faculty member, and he is one of the co-academic directors for the Lacrosse AI initiative at Darden. So a lot to talk about tonight. This conversation is really going to focus on artificial intelligence. So you hear Raj's thoughts on AI, what's happening in the world, but particularly focusing on AI in our MS in Business Analytics program, or MSBA program, as it's known. If you have questions as we go along, please feel free to ask via the Q&A. I'll keep an eye on that. But Raj, great to see you. How's everything going? How are you doing?
Good to see you, Brett. I'm doing well. Following the news on AI and working on our MSBA program. The students we had our holiday party last weekend during the residency. Students seem in good spirits and they get a break now. So do we, before they start again in the new year, where they get deeper into AI and more AI tools and machine learning and deep learning in their coursework. So I just said goodbye temporarily to the MSBA cohort before they come back in Jan.
All right. Yeah, it's a busy program. You do a lot in 12 months. 12 months start to finish. You start in August, wrap up in late July. The end of program celebration will be here before you know it. That's always a fun time in Charlottesville with all the students.
Yeah, and this is the first time they get a break, really, because they start in September and it's breakneck pace. This is the first time they got a break, about a week or two. And they come back in Jan. And like you said, before you know, it'll be July where they're graduating after presenting their final capstone projects.
All right. Well, so appreciate you taking some time for the conversation today. Before we get into the conversation around artificial intelligence in the MSBA program, let's talk a little bit more about you. So tell us about your background. Who are you and how'd you get to Darden?
Well, how much time do you have? But thank you for the kind of introduction about what all I do at Darden, so I won't bore you with that. But I'm business school faculty, but my undergrad is in computer engineering back in 97 when there was the AI winter. But in my coursework at that time, we learned about this new thing called neural networks and genetic algorithms. And these both have become the mainstay of AI toolkits today. Neural networks have evolved into deep learning networks and deep learning, and that's kind of the mainstay of AI now. And that was my first introduction, AI analytics and data science. And I've ever since stayed at that intersection of marketing and computer engineering and AI. So this has been an evolution for me around the kind of work I have always done. When I came to the US, I got interested in marketing, and the business school faculty at that time were prescient enough to say that this AI, this technology, that's what we called it, this tech will influence marketing. And remember, this was before the 2000s. And this was when marketing was the Mad Men era with all the magic and creativity, which still is there, but you can see a lot more infusion of technology and AI and data. And so I really got interested in that. I learned about marketing and saw an economics and saw how the technology I was learning can be applied. It has like an objective, right? So there was something where I was applying it on. I didn't like to learn it just for the sake of it, but I liked it when I could apply it somewhere. And so this marketing and economics and psychology, marketing is interesting also because it combines psychology and economics. So that it's about markets, but also about individual consumers. So I like that dynamism in marketing. So I stuck with it, finished my PhD. I taught in UConn, University of Connecticut, Huskies. That was my first job. I came to UVA in 2006. And so I've been here ever since. So closing in on my 20 years now.
And this program is a partner program between the Darden School of Business, which is UVA's graduate business school, and the
Mhm.
McIntyre School of Commerce at the University of Virginia. Unique amongst programs at the university in that it's a true partnership. Faculty from both schools design the curriculum and deliver the curriculum to students. Students are alums of both schools.
Mhm.
It's unique amongst UVA's programs. But what led you to Darden? What was exciting to you about the opportunity at Darden?
So one of the main things that attracted to me Darden was the mission of the school to develop responsible leaders through transformational learning experience. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but this statement reflects the balance between teaching and research with an emphasis on practice. And through all the activities we do in MSBA program included, uh, we really focus on teaching, research, and practice. I think this focus on all three at the same time is very attractive for me because I believe that research has to serve a purpose of educating future leaders and also influencing the practice. And so Darden's mission aligns with my values, and that has was really attractive to me. And and it has been a great ride. And I think I've seen a lot of students across many different formats. So I teach an MSBA, residential MBA, and EMBA, ExecMBA, and the part time. And the net, the community of Darden students and state alumni has been so like engaging with them has been so rewarding. So yeah, that's it's been a blast.
So the program has been around for a while, the MSBA program. I think we're recruiting maybe about the eighth cohort of MSBA students at this point. Um, it's a program, as mentioned before, partnership between these two schools. Um, is a program that has put students for a while at the intersection of business and data science. What was attracted to you about this particular program and your leadership role with it?
Yeah, so MSBA really it's about analytics and AI, but it's also a professional degree program. And one of the greatest pleasures I've had is interacting with the professional degree students. First of all, I respect the balancing act they have to do between working as full time professionals as well as full time students. And many of them have families with kids, and they have to complete a full time degree. So there's a lot of things they're juggling, and I have my utmost respect for what they are doing. And I also find it rewarding that when you teach these students, what you teach in class can be applied immediately at work. And they also bring the experience at work back into the class. And that makes it rewarding for everyone, for us as faculty, for them as students, but also for the group of students with whom they are interacting. Regarding the MSBA program, I like it because I consider it to be future focused. This is the part of portfolio of degrees that is closest to how business is changing. And it's really addressing some of the main trends that are affecting business today. And it's about honing the whole transformation of business to be more data driven and AI led and preparing students for this new world. And so that's consistent the belief I hold that technology is going to transform a lot of how business is done and always has been. And the MSBA program helps is really addressing it directly. And so that really attracts me because it's consistent with what I have been working on in my career.
Well, before we get into the MSBA program, sort of the nuts and bolts of it and talking about AI in the program, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening around AI at Darden. There's a lot, actually. A very large gift that created
Mhm.
this AI institute focused on ethical AI, of which you're one of the co-academic directors.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit more about what's happening around artificial intelligence at DARD.
Oh boy, a lot, a lot. But let me start with how it's infusing into our classrooms, right? Our strategy professors are using it to imagine new ways for students to prepare for case discussions. Data science faculty are using it to teach coding and best practices of how to use AI for machine learning. Marketing faculty and my group leads discussions on using AI in branding, agentics, AI's influence on consumer behavior and choice, um, and also trust. Do people trust AI recommendations? LO faculty are investigating the future of work when AI is the boss. Our ops faculty are trying to understand the economics and supply chain impacts of data centers. Ethics faculty are looking at applicability of traditional models of human values to AI. And our econ faculty are preparing for the world when AGI takes over and what happens to the economics and the models of trade and income inequality. So AI, as you can see, is affecting every aspect of Darden. The faculty are bringing their unique perspectives to this multidimensional problem. And the Lacrosse Institute it gives me a unique opportunity to really promote and support all of these activities. And consistent, should mention that all these activities in Darden, consistent with our mission, is focused on researching about best practices for AI that is also relevant and applicable to developing responsible leaders. So there's a lot in terms of case studies, research, course design. We are affecting all stakeholders with AI. And partly, there are many initiatives in Darden, and the Lacrosse Institute was one of the ones that got funded among the quickest from initiative to a whole institute. And that's also indicative of the interest across Darden and also the importance of the issue that we are trying to, re- that we're working on.
Well, I know there was a really large conference that just happened at Darden focused on artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. It's part of a
Mhm.
series. It feels like you're doing these a couple times a year. At least this
Yeah,
one's
so
big.
absolutely. So in the Lacrosse Institute, we have two main um, conferences. Um, the first one is in fall, in December, that just happened. That is, and the second one will be in May in DC, where we primarily report on our AI index and AI report that we develop every year. The conference that just happened, the topic was Minding the Gap. It brought together researchers across UVA and industry folks to think about different perspectives on this issue of minding the gap. What we mean by that is, as we talk about AI, it has benefits and risks, and the gap between risks and benefits determine whether AI is going to really improve our society or uh, affect it negatively. And so we had talks from the chief economist at Anthropic, we had our econ economics faculty, engineering faculty, data science faculty, Darden faculty talk on different issues like trust in AI, how to use AI for strategy, building digital twins for privacy protections, um, how people are using Gen AI these days, based on their chat transcripts in Anthropic. So a lot of different information that goes into how we build a trust with AI systems and reduce the downside risks. We also had industry representatives from NVR, DoorDash, WWT, Reddit, etc. And so the conference was really about bringing together the whole UVA community as well as a community of academic of practitioners who are really motivated to lead more responsibly.
Feels like that actual that practitioner piece is important at Darden, right? You mentioned the research that faculty do.
Mhm.
It's tied to actual practice.
Yes.
And think about the MSBA curriculum. It's very hands-on. It's very
Yeah.
practically oriented.
hmm Yeah, it is. And that's a key part and differentiator of our MSBA is that it is intentional about being more applicable to the real world today and at the same time being academically rigorous. So we do not sacrifice any rigor when it comes to the um, academic parts and also the depth of knowledge you'll gain about machine learning or AI. But it's also done, like you said, in a very hands on way that is applicable for industry. So you can actually lead industry in a more informed and rigorous manner, right? So the way we achieve that is through what we call integrated analytics and AI curriculum. And each module is an integrated set of courses that all share a capstone project. So the capstone project is a platform on which all these courses are coordinating so that you get not five random subjects you're taking, but things that are all uh, building up to the same idea. So in module one, it may be about learning about enterprise and business strategy and the introduction to um, analytics. In module two, you move on to data science, customer and predictive analytics, and visualization. And you work in a capstone project for all these courses for uh, university advancement group, predicting who will be the likely donors and how to target them using the techniques and tools you learned in all the courses in module two. Module three, you work on you go deeper into data science, where you're building deep learning models and classification models, and also um, service profit chain models, and learning about data engineering and people analytics. And all of that is applied to a capstone project with Hilton, where we connect employee engagement to customer satisfaction outcomes. And like module four is about managing big data, deep learning 2.0, agentic AI, and project management and product development. The project is about developing an AI product to predict adverse drug reactions for the FDA. And finally, in module five, we look at business impact, ethics, and students lead a capstone project where they lead the project from soup to nuts. And this is with different sponsors. And each group has a sponsor where they're working on a real life project. So, as you can see, every time they learn something, they're applying it directly in the projects in that module. And those projects are real life and connecting with organizations in real time, and it also allows them to coordinate and learn the connections across the courses so they can build a more solid foundation about analytics and AI. And we've been really lucky with the kind of industry connections we've been able to build for these different projects. Right? We've had connections with Microsoft, PwC, you name it, Capital One, Salesforce, Major League Baseball, DoorDash, Databricks, National Gallery of Art, um, Young Brands, Yext, some of the major Boeing, some of the major brands and companies of different sizes, and also nonprofits like Bonsecor. So it really, these projects allow you to see the applicability of analytics and AI across many different industries in real time.
So, Raj, want to transition from that to talk a little bit about the skill set that employees need in this particular age. And would like to spend some time as we get into this talking about exactly how the program engages around machine learning and artificial intelligence and particular topics and tools that are used. But before we get there, so we feels like we're in an inflection point here. There's a lot of conversation
Mhm.
around artificial intelligence, potential disruption in the workforce, people trying to figure out what all these tools mean for what
Yeah.
work will look like and how to prepare
for this environment and be responsive. In your opinion, what skill set is needed for people in this artificial intelligence age?
Oh boy, there are a lot of information and a lot of opinions on that. One thing I really think that struck with me is this idea of chimeric talent. What this is coming from Greek mythology of the chimera, which is part lion, part goat, and part serpent. And how that applies here is that in this AI world, you need some expertise, which you build, but you should also be expanding the skill set and be able to do other tasks that are adjacent to your expertise by upskilling using AI. So you think about a marketing person whose skill set is building brand creative briefs, but they should, and they're a real expert in understanding consumer needs and translating them into uh, brand concepts and how that translates into advertisements and creatives. But at the same time, they must be able to use AI to upskill and be able to use SQL to query data sets about consumer surveys to understand consumer insights. Or they must be able to, once this ad campaign is run, uh, look at the results on Google Analytics or brand tracking surveys to see whether that campaign was actually successful. Previously, these kind of skills, previously, you could think of this marketing person to just focus on building brand campaigns and creative briefs and have someone else run the SQL query or someone else see if the ad campaign was successful or not. While that can still be done, it took time and there was a lot of things that was lost in translation among the three different teams. As AI gets more and more used within organizations, they're looking for like the same person to be able to quickly do some adjacent tasks as well so that they have a quick understanding about what they need from the other adjacent skill sets to move ahead with what their main task is. Now, if the need becomes more complicated, then they can go into working with a data science team or a data engineering team to collect more, to do a more rigorous, in depth analysis. But oftentimes that may not be necessary, and a quick and dirty query or analysis may be sufficient. And so the skill set that is necessary is for you to have an expertise in something, but also understand that you must be able to use AI effectively to upskill into other tasks. And what I mean by using AI effectively is that your expertise tells you whether the output you're getting from an AI is good and valuable or not. And your expertise also allows you to guide the AI to give you to do the right kind of tasks, to direct the AI better, and also evaluate whether the AI is providing the right kind of input for your task. Right. And so that's another skill set we need. And that's the skill set that is necessary to be able to effectively upskill. So that's why we talk about the chimera, because you have to be part of this, part of that, part of something else, but you still need to have a base. Like, you have 4 feet and, you're more like an animal than a human, but you still have parts of different animals in you.
Very interesting. Should people be thinking about differentiating themselves in this kind of environment? You mentioned this ability to sort of be chimeric, but are there things that people should be thinking about in terms of differentiating themselves? Obviously, it's a competitive world out there.
Yeah. So differentiator, again, I go back to expertise. I think your expertise could be that you're a translator between data science and business. Your expertise could be that you're really good at understanding consumer insights and understanding consumers, but you're able to also use data effectively. Or your expertise could be that you're very good at understanding financial models, um, right? Or you're a supply chain expert or a people expert. But then you have to layer on top of that expertise this ability to use AI effectively. And that's not just knowing what is ChatGPT or Claude. It is also knowing how to use those tools better. And one of the things you will learn in MSBA is AI is being used a lot, but what people talk about is one form of AI called generative AI. There's a whole world of predictive AI that includes traditional machine learning models like predicting customer churn or predicting employee retention, uh, or predicting employee satisfaction. And so you need to be able to understand those differences. You need to be able to know which tool to use when. And so it's almost like you have a Swiss Army knife and you need to know how to use it when, at what place proper.
So I'm curious about how the MSBA program has evolved, given this sort of emerging skill set that you've been talking about here.
Mhm. So we have been lockstep with the developments in AI, right? Because we've always taught advanced machine learning. And so we teach AI and analytics as an end-to-end system, not as isolated set of skills. Because of a module structure and how all the courses are connected, it's more of things building on one another rather than random set of courses here and there. And we emphasize a lot of real time. And the real time emphasis allows us to keep in touch with what is going on and how to react. And we really are building leaders who can lead, like who are evergreen and who know the fundamentals and can adapt quickly. A clear example of how our program has evolved is, for example, one of our faculty, they give Jupyter notebooks in Python for coding and for learning data science. Now he has built his own, he has integrated ChatGPT into that Jupyter notebook for people to start learning how to use Gen AI to code effectively. Right. And we've started a new course that is going to be on agentic AI that is recently introduced for this cohort in module 4. So we are really looking at, do we need a new course or do we need existing tools to be more AI friendly? Right? So it's a combination of both, but we are constantly evaluating what is going on out there and what needs to happen in our programs to be more reflective of the industry out there. And we can do that because we have strong industry connections. Our projects are all related with industry. We talk to our sponsors every year who come for our capstone projects about how they are using AI. Our immersion trips to DC and global locations help us understand how companies are using AI every day. So, through all these activities, we are keeping in touch with what is going on. And that allows us to constantly reflect. Every summer, the faculty meet to see across the whole MSBA faculty meet to understand, are we doing everything we need to do? What is happening out there that is not reflected in our programs? So it's a constant annual improvement cycle.
So a question here in the Q&A about, specific machine learning and AI topics that are covered in the curriculum and tools that are used in class. I'm sure it's hard to detail all of them, but maybe just a few things that come to mind when you think about those questions.
Sure. So tools wise, I can start at the tools. We have all the tools that you've heard of, like Python, of course, MySQL, Ultrix for NoSQL, Databricks, Snowflake. We use all of those in our courses. And our Sawtooth, those are some niche tools that we use as well. In terms of topics, it's the gamut. We have fundamentals of analytics like basic statistics, regression, lasso regression, ridge regression, random forests, deep learning, classification models. Um, we also do fine tuning of deep learning models, large language models, RAG, agentic AI. Is there anything? And then data management in terms of SQL and Hadoop and big data management as well. And also causal inference, experimental design, survey design, um, as well. So it kind of covers almost all of these major topics that you would see in any kind of advanced machine learning course.
Yeah, you mentioned the evergreen nature of the program, and certainly trying to create graduates who have sort of this evergreen skill set. Um, One of the things that's true, at least it seems to me, about the program is its breadth. It covers a lot of different things. Students are learning about a lot of different things, which creates an ability for them to continue to learn as they move forward
Mm-hmm.
in their career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things so the application of what they learn in capstone projects really helps them with they learn to learn because of that. Because they have class discussions, they are doing some exercises in class, but then they have to take all of that learning and learn about this project context and learn to apply what they have learned in the class on that project and understand if they have inference, like how to infer about different of how to make inferences after the analysis and present those inferences by connecting it back to the problem statement. Those kind of things, while you can talk about it in a lecture and you can note down the steps, you really learn and like you it becomes part of your muscle memory if you actually do it many times. And that's how you learn. And the fear of the new or the fear of the unknown is removed when you are forced to like learn about a real-time project and take what's in the books and your class notes and apply it to this real-time project.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that people talk about when they talk about artificial intelligence is how it's made it so easy to code. And so I'm
Mhm.
curious, in your opinion, do you feel like coding is still relevant for folks in an MSBA program generally?
Sure. So that's a question that gets asked a lot, and it's understandable why people had that question. Um, I would go back to the chimeric talent example, right? So you need expertise in some, and you need to be upskilling using AI. When you're upskilling with using Gen AI, maybe you don't need to know coding as much. But if your expertise is in analytics, if your expertise is you're that data scientist who gets called when there is something rigorous that needs to be done that someone in marketing is not able to accomplish, you are now dealing with a level of coding that goes a little more in depth. That is, yes, I have done coding myself using or Claude or all the different like Cursor AI, all those different tools out there. But what I have seen is it gives me a good first step, and if it works, great. But if it doesn't work, if there is a bug in the code, I need to be able to understand what the code is doing to fix it. I can ask the Gen AI to fix it, but oftentimes I see it just doesn't have that extra bit of context and the extra bit of like the debugging skills I have developed over 30 years. And so I need to be able to bring that in to fix it, to be able to do the work faster. So the ones who are most productive are the ones who are already experts. So there's a whole theory that is coming up which shows that research is showing that AI helps experts become even better. So if you're in that world of data science, analytics, and that's the expertise you're claiming for yourself, then you will be an even better analyst or data science if you know to effectively use this to do your job. It's going to do what you do better, but you need to know what it is doing so that many times it's writing a code for without knowing your context as well. And so when you take a generic code and apply it into your context, for example, you may say, find me how many, like, I want an analysis that predicts the number of visitors to my website. It's going to know about some kind of Google Analytics structure and write a code for that. But when it comes to your website, maybe there is a difference between registered users versus general users. What if we have a paywall like New York Times or Wall Street Journal? Then the way you structure your visitors may be different. Now, when you take the generic code and apply it to your specific case, you need to know how the code is treating these different categories and what you need to do in those and guide the AI to change it for your context. And then there may be other nuances where it may not just be doing the right thing. It may be, so how do you know what it is doing and how do you redirect the AI to do it better for you? So those are the places where it's maybe a more technical answer than you wanted, but it's easy to say you don't need coding anymore. But the real thing is it helps an existing expert coder be more productive and do the job of 3 or 4 other coders. I think that is the real place where there is change happening.
Very interesting. I had a conversation with Michael Albert, who's the Darden faculty member who teaches in the MSBA program as part of our Office Hours series, which I would recommend to anybody watching or listening to this. You can find it on our podcast channel, ExecMBA Podcast or Experience Darden. Also on our Vimeo channel through Darden Admissions. Very interesting to pick his brain about the value of coding. He says coding has never been more important because there's so much quote unquote AI slop, just bad coding. People aren't able to sort of figure out what's wrong with it. To your point, right? You have to have expertise to be able to really use these tools effectively.
Yeah, and the slop thing is really true. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is that you have a false sense of comfort that you did something. But what you did was completely wrong. So it's better to know that you have not done something or you cannot do, but to have the false sense of comfort that you did something, but that thing is totally wrong, is even more dangerous. And that's where the AI slop can be really dangerous for us.
Well, in our kind of final 20 minutes here, I'd like to take some time just to talk about what's happening in industry around AI.
Sure.
Obviously, this technology is changing quickly. I mean, you just think about the arc of the story of artificial intelligence over the past few years, right? ChatGPT comes out a few years ago, or at least in a commercial kind of way for people like us on the street to use it. And all of a sudden, now we're talking about agentic AI. You see ads on the TV. People continue to talk about artificial generalized intelligence. When will that happen? I mean, it feels like things move very quickly here. So given how rapidly AI is changing and evolving, how do you see companies using this technology?
I laugh because it's I've lived long enough to see a few waves come and go. I've seen the internet wave, I've seen the digital transformation wave. And every time this happened, we've asked the same questions and companies have reacted in the same way. Because you had the vendors who I call like the Max 7 now, or like, and they were there even before, right? They're always jumping from the top of the roofs and saying that this is going to revolutionize the world. And um, and it does eventually, to their credit. Eventually, the internet made a big difference in our worlds. Eventually, technology and Internet of Things and database systems really changed the way we do business. I think we are at a place where, with Gen AI specifically, and because I think a lot of this discussion is around Gen AI, but we've had predictive AI and we've had this AI machine learning wave for a long time, and companies are still building up their predictive AI capabilities. So the new mainstream interest is really around Gen AI. And we have studies again coming up that have showed. There was a study with MIT that came early this fall, which shows 95% of the companies don't have a successful implementation of AI. Some argue they're not realizing the value yet. Another survey talks about strategic emphasis. And we will come out with that AI index and come with some version of that same kind of statistic, I'm sure. So there's a lot of one-offs. There's a lot of surveys that are showing and questioning the success of this AI in mainstream non-vendor. And I say mainstream, what I call as non-vendor companies. Vendor companies is your Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, Amazon, Oracle, NVIDIA, people who are building the tools, right? The AI tools. The non-vendors are the clients who are using it for their own businesses, but their business is not building AI. And for them, the implementation has still been a saga. And when I teach company executives across the board, what I'm realizing is a lot of people are using AI to write emails, to summarize documents. They're using one-off as individuals, but a strategic emphasis of using AI to change the way we compete or serve customers is not yet taking root within organizations. And there may be different reasons for it, because they may be just trying out things. These kind of implementations cost a lot of money. And oftentimes there's a skill gap within the non-vendor organizations, within the client organizations. There is data gaps, and so which prevent them from using it well. AI may not be able to do all the work that they need. There is one of the main reasons is also how AI can learn about your context, like to our earlier conversation about coding. On a broader scale, when you bring in like OpenAI or ChatGPT into your organization, don't even start me with Copilot. I'm not even going to go there. I don't think Copilot should consider itself AI, but I'm not. So let's not talk about Copilot that most companies use now. But like OpenAI or Claude or Gemini coming in, using that in your organization, they need to use that within the context of what the organization does, right? And that will take time. And that learning that you need to do for that, and the customization that you need to do, will take time, and it takes a different skill set as well. So we are in the very early stages of this. I call it as these client organizations are trying to run a Ferrari on a dirt road. Okay. It's really like early stages. We have so many things to get right outside of the AI technology within the companies. And I'm not even touching the governance issues, the ethical issues, the regulation issues yet. Without all of this, you have challenges on that before even going into any of that. So my guess is, I think people who know, I think for our MSBA students, what is relevant to know immediately for them is that there is a skills gap within organizations. Organizations are thirsty for talent that understands business and knows how to use AI effectively and understands both predictive and generative AI. So if you can position yourself in that space, whatever the macroeconomic environment may be about the job numbers or the economy, this part of the economy has been growing. So you will find a lot of opportunities if you can effectively position yourself as helping organizations with this talent gap.
Super interesting. You mentioned the governance issues, the ethical issues. Governance is in the news because of some back and forth between states that have tried to regulate an AI and
Mhm.
federal government pushing back. I'm curious,
Mhm.
are there any storylines around artificial intelligence that you're following? Anything that's caught your attention?
So I'm certainly following the governance story. More around, I haven't gone deep into which states want what. I can guess that some states want more regulation, and the federal government is saying, hold your horses here. But, and I know Europe, I followed their AI governance laws very carefully, and Europe has a tendency to overregulate. US has a tendency to balance it, I think. I think with CCPR and with the Virginia privacy regulations and New York and Colorado and Texas privacy regulations, I think we've got it right. I think we have a better regulation system in privacy than GDPR in Europe. And so, which is a balancing consumer interest, but also allowing innovation and growth. I think that is going to be the biggest struggle here. Yes, we understand that um, there is threats, there is misuse of any technology. Bad people will do bad things with it. Will find way by way. They will also get more productive and effective, right? And so, yes, but that doesn't mean you don't like you put it's like you cannot put this back into the box, right? This genie is not going back into the box. You cannot say, "Oh, don't do anything," which tends to be like a little bit of the European way of regulating, right? I think in the US, what we are going through and this kind of back and forth is useful because we're trying to find the right balance between ethical and responsible use of AI that benefits society, catches the bad guys, stop the bad guys from doing bad things, but doesn't stop innovation, doesn't stop the startup entrepreneurial culture in the country, doesn't stop economic growth, right? So we need to find that right balance. And I think that's a very interesting space where we are looking at these kind of regulations. And that's the challenge that America always faces is how do you balance the different goals of real economic system? I think other news story, of course, AI bubble, which is super interesting because I just read a book on the Andrew Ross Sorkin's book on 1929, The Crash. I read the whole thing during my Thanksgiving break. It's very fascinating to see the connections to what is happening now and how some of the things that happened then, maybe you can see parallels now. Um, I'm looking at in the marketing side how AI is getting used to create ads and stories without humans and what the consumers' reactions are to those kind of things. And I'm also looking at development of AI influencers that are AI on social media, who have their own following, who are big time influencers, and brands are recruiting them to promote their products. So that's a totally uh, out there idea. I thought it was out there, but more and more I see it is getting used. There are like more I look into it, there are I think it's almost mainstream now. And so we are writing a case study on um, nutrition brand, whether it should, which has grown a lot using human influencers, whether the next wave of growth for them is going to be from AI influencers, right? Or so that's a fascinating space in marketing that I'm following. Um, and there's also this whole world on how do you use Gen AI to create synthetic respondents to surveys and to focus groups and to evaluate marketing concepts. And how do you get AI to absorb the different personalities of your segments, consumer segments, right? So that's another fair place where within marketing, I'm very fascinated by how we can use Gen AI for that purposes.
Darden obviously has really emphasized ethical AI.
Mhm.
What does that mean exactly? Because you raised, there's a lot of ethical questions with artificial intelligence, right? A lot of different ways to think about this, but what do you think that means, ethical AI?
So I'm not a philosopher. I'm not into grand things about Aristotle or Socrates. I'm a quant, econ, marketing guy. But from my vantage point, there are two things in my mind. The first is a more economic concept, which is negative externalities. That is, small actions that are done in the benefit of maximizing one objective for the company, like profit maximization or customer value creation, could add up and create negative consequences down the road. So while you didn't mean ill intent in the small action, like improving customer engagement on your website, but if that website is Instagram, and by the way you have created that customer engagement is by, you didn't know, you tried to create personalized content. Who doesn't want? I don't want ads that are not relevant for me. I want ads that are relevant, right? I want stories that are relevant. That's a valid, proper objective. But suddenly doing that over time, what you realize is it is doing it by sending you angry content, hateful content, because that's what keeps you coming back. And that, when done over billions of consumers, has societal consequences. That's what I call as negative externalities. The real ethical challenge is the ability to see that negative externality when you're doing decisions on these small things. That's the real challenge. How do you think about that? Like I talked about the regulation, how do you balance the negative externality with the solution is don't do that, but how do you do it properly that benefits society? The second, I feel, is the word I have used is trust. I think it all comes down to trust. When you use misinformation, that means you don't trust what you saw. Somebody is violating that trust. Consumers may not trust what they see from the AR, right? To me, that is that other ethical part of it is trust, right? And I read somewhere that I think there was a nice title in a magazine article that said, "Is the age of photographic evidence over?" We cannot believe any picture for what it is anymore. Right? That's a violation of trust and norm in society. So that's how I see as if I were to like look at, I'm sure there are many more that my ethics colleagues can very eloquently talk about. But in my world, it is these two things. And how do you manage that? And when you design any AI system, how do you ensure trust and anticipate negative externalities? Is my approach of looking at ethics of AI.
It's very interesting. You think about, uh, well, AI generated photos, AI generated videos, AI
Mhm.
generated, I guess, basically songs,
Mhm.
like people talking. Like there was a
Yeah.
very interesting 60 Minutes recently about essentially this chatbot program. It's kind of like companion chat where you could have you could have all these celebrities as like your AI friends, and when they speak, they sound exactly like the celebrity, which to the person who was
That's the AI influencer thing, right? TikTok has this thing where you can immediately take your own videos, give it to TikTok, and it'll create AI avatars, and you can generate videos, keep generating like that. So what's the trust in there? Right. So it comes back to that. And I think, I had some thought I forgot. Sorry.
Well, I'm curious if we had this session a year from now, what do you think we would be talking about when it comes to artificial intelligence?
I think this data center thing is going to be a big deal. I think, and that's related to the AI bubble or bust, bust or real. I think there will be some talk about it, one way or the other. There's too much investment going in, and it's becoming too big to fail. I think robotics is really important. We have talked about a lot of Gen AI, but the physical AI, more than robotics, I would say physical AI is a bigger game changer, I think, or is as big a game changer as Gen AI. And for example, like self-driving cars is in the physical AI world. There was an article, I think it was New York Times Upshot, where they looked at Waymo usage and safety in all the places where it's a taxi. Waymo is by far more safer than humans. Think about that. You're much safer in a Waymo taxi than going in your Uber or driving yourself. Now you can say, oh, different kind of places, different. I understand all the challenges to the data that one can pose, but it is still driving in a system where there are other human drivers, and Waymo is also driving, and it is safer. As more self-driving cars come, the roads are going to get safer because you're taking out the unsafe elements. So think about that as a physical AI manifestation and benefit for society. Right? And what does that imply? And if you want to think about choice, well, that can all be electric cars. And if it's a rental is taking over and consumers are not making their choices, it may be easier to move into an electric system than a combustion system if that is a better alternative and is better for the environment. Maybe it's high. So there is, I think this physical AI world is very important. And I think it is going to see a lot of action next year. There have been some chip improvements that are happening that are major, that will make the cost go down and the compute go up, that this can happen. Agentic AI is another one in the marketing world that's huge. If the machine is shopping for you or the machine is talking to another machine and the shopping is done, what is the role of ads? What's the role of impulse purchases? What is the role of consumer choice? What is the role of AI understanding your latent, like we have expressed preferences and latent preferences. What preference should AI adopt when it shops for you? So there is a lot of, I think agentic AI is another big thing I would say we would be talking about.
It's interesting when you talk about data centers and too big to fail, it calls to mind a different time in our recent history. And I guess Sam Altman recently made some comment, maybe in passing, about bailout and then walked back from it and then made some statements about how bullish he was about OpenAI's future.
Here's a kicker. Those data centers, sometimes, if it's not the Mag 7, is being built on leverage. And that mortgage, like that loan, is being securitized, i.e., combined and sold as products, like we did the mortgages. That's all I will say.
It does remind you of another time in history, which is not so distant, unfortunately. Well, I'm curious, Raj, for folks who've gotten interested in what we've talked about this evening, any Any recommendations, books they might be able to check out to continue learning about all this?
I can say one podcasts. I would say Daily AI Brief is a good one. The Daily AI Brief. Books, I think, you mean other than my book? You can say, yeah, I'll say AI Snake Oil is a good book, and Culpability is another good book. Websites, I like to see deeplearning.ai is a good website to go to. So those are my recommendations.
And Culpability, a work of fiction written by UVA.
UVA. We had it speak in our conference.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Raj, such a pleasure spending time with you. Thanks for indulging all my questions. To our attendees, thank you so much for being here. We've recorded this session and it'll be up on the MSBA website. And we'll also plan to share out the recording on our podcast channels, Experience Darden and the ExecMBA podcast, which can be found wherever you look for podcasts. So Raj, happy holidays and thanks again for doing this.
Happy holidays to you as well, Brett. And thank you all for attending and hope to see you in our classrooms one day.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Happy holidays. Have a great night.
And that was my conversation with Raj Venkatesan, a member of the marketing faculty here at the Darden School of Business, as well as one of the co-academic directors for the MS in Business Analytics program here at the University of Virginia. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.